An identity crisis can be many things. Losing your sense of purpose, a midlife crisis, returning to civilian life, or simply feeling like you don't belong. My life has been one ongoing identity crisis after another. I've started this podcast to help deal with my own demons and negative self-talk, and to ultimately and hopefully learn that I'm not alone, and that these thoughts and feelings aren't unique to me. So if this helps you too, then one by one we can come together, heal ourselves, and move forward with our goals and dreams with a sense of belief, happiness, and purpose. Welcome back to the Identity Crisis Podcast. I am your host, JNewtz, and today I have with me comedian Mr. Jake Brooks. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing very well, thank you. How are you?
Not too bad, thanks very much. So tell me, how long have you been in comedy for?
I've only been in comedy for just over 12 months as it stands.
Oh.
So I'm still quite new.
Still quite a newbie. So what got you into comedy in the first place?
Honestly, I had interest in comedy through most of my life, but only watching like big boys like Peter Kay, Lee Evans, Chubby, people like that. And then a couple of years ago, I got into the podcast Have a Word from Adam Rowe and Dan Nightingale.
Oh, nice one.
And then following up on that, because they talk a lot about the industry and sort of where they came from and stuff. And then following on from that, I had some personal stuff going on. And just sort of decided I wanted to do something that was just for me.
So when you're saying that they were sort of talking about how the industry was for them, how do you think the industry differed from when they got into it compared to how it is now?
I think particularly for Dan, because he's older, he's in his 40s, whereas Adam's sort of 31, 32, my sort of age. So he got in like 20 odd years ago, so they weren't as much like, so you couldn't market yourself on social media as much, and you weren't able to sort of push like I can push my gigs out to my friends and stuff. And I don't think he sort of had that, whereas Adam's like smashed social media like Paul Smith style and just sort of been uploading clips like every day from every show that he's done and stuff like that, which I'm still finding quite difficult to do because I'm very self-critical. So I'll record a gig that I've done, then I'll watch it back and decide I hate it. So I don't want to put anything out from it.
I know exactly how you feel. Yeah.
So I sort of relinquished creative control to my wife at the minute, and she's going to go through everything and cut bits out that she likes.
See, that's not such a bad idea, actually, because the thing is, as performers, we can always be, as you say, so self-critical of ourselves, either the material, the amount of laughter, or even just the way that we deliver the joke and handle ourselves on stage. It's very easy to look at something and say, I hate that, it sucks, but somebody else can go, no, I actually love it. It's really funny and entertaining to watch. We can be our own worst enemies.
Yeah, I did a gig a couple of weeks ago locally at a local theatre that's all like volunteer run, and they're trying to fund the new toilets because the toilets are in absolute disrepair. And I've obviously recorded it, watched it back, and sort of went, oh God, I hate it. I've missed a line here, and I've done this here, but then when I finished my set, 'cause I were on last in first part, I went outside for a cigarette, and like people were coming up to me. It's like shaking hands, hugging me. Somebody asked me for a photo. It was just bizarre because they were all going, "Oh, you were so good. You were the best one that's been on so far." And I'm like, I really weren't. Like people have gone on before me and done far better. But yeah, it's a weird one.
It is very strange. I mean, I've had similar experiences before myself. I think that a lot of comedians have, and like I said, we can definitely be our own worst enemies when it comes to writing your material or booking in your gigs or even standing there at the gig waiting to go on. What sort of thoughts go through your head? Do you typically find that we will be saying, I'm going to have a great gig, or are you saying things like, I'm not funny, what am I doing here? How would you sort of describe your process?
Writing material, I'm really, really bad for procrastinating. So I'll carry a notebook around with me and I'll bring it to work. So like I'm a chef at the minute, so I'm like, I sometimes do like at 8:30 in the morning till we close at night sort of shit.
Oh, right.
or I'll get like an hour's break on some shifts, and I'll bring a notebook to work, and I'll go in the staff room and sit down, and then I'll just put it back and end up watching TV. And then it comes to like the day of the gig, and I'm like, oh no, I need to write this material. So then I'll sit down and like I'll get stuff written down, but then obviously I've not got enough time to sort of memorize it properly and do that part of it. So then I end up getting to the gig, and I'm sat like I feel bad because I'm sat going through notes with while people are performing, or I'll get on stage and I'll blank something. So I do personally need to get better at this practice sort of thing and getting stuff ready in advance.
Yeah, no, that's something that I definitely suffer from that too. I can have copious amounts of notes, and my phone is full of voice recordings or notes I've just written down. And when it comes to writing the script, that's not such a hard thing for me, because half the time you're just transcribing what you've written or what you've said. But then refining it, rehearsing it, and doing it again and again, knowing that you've got a deadline for a gig, either in 5 minutes at a pub in a week or an hour at a festival show a little while later, it can definitely, for me, I know I've got the passion to perform, but I've got the sort of imposter syndrome thing that kicks in that says, no, well, you're not really even good enough for this. And I'm always fighting this battle between saying I need to rehearse and get better, but then my mind is going, but you're shit anyway.
Yeah, I definitely get. So I grew up watching like Lee Evans stuff. So when I was sort of 11, 12, that sort of stuff, I won't mind getting comedy a try when I get older. And then just obviously, you grow up, and I grew up and I had a son at 23. Obviously worked full time all my life, so stuff like that sort of gets pushed to the back burner. And then obviously I got doing it, and then obviously I performed at a theatre recently, and I've got people asking me for a photo. I've only done sort of 10 or so gigs. So I was just sort of like you just can't believe that this is my life sort of thing, if that makes sense. Yeah,
absolutely. I suppose because you get into comedy, I think, because you just want to, it's a form of expression. It's obviously fun to do. When it goes really well, you feel fantastic. When it goes really bad, you feel like absolute crap. But, and you say when people come up and shake your hand, or they go, oh, can I have a photograph or whatever, it's definitely a special feeling. I don't think it's the reason why we do it, but at the same time, it kind of makes all those bad gigs feel a bit better, knowing that you've reached out to somebody and they've really enjoyed what you had to say.
Yeah, especially the first one I ever did was a little micro pub in Sheffield, and it wasn't even in Sheffield, like outside of the city centre. And it was my first ever time. I'd only just started seeing my partner at that point, but she came along. There were a comedian and a guy called James Crook, who's from Manchester, who I would get it was coming up to my time, and I was like, oh, I don't want to do it anymore, change my mind. I'm leaving immediately. He sort of came across and put his arm around me and said, like, I'm not going to let you walk out that door having not done it. He said, if you never ever do it again, then fine, but I'm not going to let you walk out of this pub having not performed. And even that night, sort of, I got 5 minutes, and I think I splurted on material item 3 out of pure nerves. But I still got people cheering and people coming and shaking my hand after, and people going, oh, you were brilliant, mate, well done. And again, even then, straight away, it was like, this can't be my life. Like, this stuff like this is not supposed to happen to me. Like, everything's been shit. How is this my life now? And then, sort of further on, I went and watched a show that a friend of mine who was a promoter put on, and then just sat having a chat with a guy called Scott Bennett, and then but he's like, Scott Bennett's then referring to me as a comedy colleague. I'm like, mate, you're touring theatres.
It's interesting. I mean, look, I haven't got to the stage where I'm touring theatres or anything like that. I used to work with a group before I moved to the UK, so the other guys from the group are back in Australia. But I know for a fact that I sort of relied upon them as a safety net. And we tried to sort of, work our way up to being touring comedians, but all the COVID lockdowns really sort of put the kibosh on that several years ago. And then moving over here, I'm sort of starting from the ground up. So you tend to look at people who are touring, and it's very easy, I guess, to look at them because they're on stage and everything seems to work, and they've got wonderful stage presence, and the jokes just land, and the audience is in their lap, and they resonate, and they're laughing, they're along for the journey. And you sort of sit there and you think to yourself, number one, how the hell do I get to that level? And number two, am I even good enough to get to that level? It's kind of weird, even though these days audiences just want different things. They want people to just be not everyone has to be Jimmy Carr. Not everybody has to be Lee Evans. Audiences need that variety, but it's just interesting how we all have this belief that, well, they can do it, but I'm not good enough.
Yeah, the thing I'm trying to keep reminding myself is, the likes of Adam Rowe and Scott Bennett and Paul Smith and anybody else all started out by doing these open mic gigs that I'm doing. These free events, not dragging yourself 2 hours up road for 5 minutes and you're not getting paid for it. It's kind of reminding yourself that they all had to do this. Like, they all did it.
It's just basically cutting your teeth, isn't it?
Yeah. It's like Adam Rowe on his podcast talks loads about, catching bus from a rough estate in Liverpool into city centre to get down to hot water to go and do his open mic, and having to either get a taxi or walk back. If he didn't have any money to pay for a taxi, he had to walk back, but he did it just because it's what he wanted. So I'm sort of in that mindset at the minute of, they've all done it, I've got to do it. Yeah, all right. Driving from Worksop where I live to Huddersfield takes about 2 hours for the sake of 5 minutes on stage, and I'm getting nothing back. I'm losing money on it because I'm buying drinks and stuff on there.
Yep, that's it. There's no such thing as free. You don't get a lot of free drinks as a newbie comedian, do you?
No, you might get one if you're lucky at some gigs.
You might get someone saying, "Oh, that was really funny. Here's a pint," and that's about it.
Yeah. I think I've done two where the venue gave you one free drink. But that was that rate. There were no sort of, not even like a tenner towards expenses and stuff. It was just a pint. Yeah, definitely. Now, you mentioned that you live in Worksop. You've travelled, the 2 hours to Huddersfield. What happens when you do that? You spend the time, you spend the money, and then your 5 minutes on stage goes really badly. What goes through your mind when you get off stage and on that journey back home again? I've only really had one that I can say was an absolute disaster, and that were in Nottingham just before Christmas. So I'd gone, I think it was about an hour away, or just over an hour away. I got there. An old mate of mine had turned up out at Blue because he'd seen it on Facebook. I'd not seen him for nigh on a decade. One of my best friends had showed up to support. My wife was supposed to be on her work's Christmas do, but she bailed on. She went for the meal and skipped on the night out and drove back from Birmingham to Nottingham to get there before I went on stage. Oh, right. And then this kid went on before me and did a 10-minute set based on the Holocaust and Israel and Palestine. Oh. And he died horribly. Killed the room, yeah? So I knew that I was next up, and I'm sort of stood there watching it thinking, what the fuck am I going to do now? And then like you say, it was small, a really small crowd. I think there were 8 there just to see me, and it just nothing landed for me. I'd done a load of new material ready for it, and it didn't land. It weren't quite there, and I forgot my lines halfway through, so I sort of froze. And after that, genuinely, I wanted to give it up. I was really on the edge of saying, right, that's it. I'm done. I'm not good enough. I've not got the talent. I just need to leave it alone and, leave it to the pros sort of thing. Yeah. What got you over that mindset? My wife a lot kept pushing, you need to go and do another one. You need to go and do another gig. If you give it up, you're going to regret it. Because she keeps going, oh, you're so good. I'm like, yeah, but you're biased because we're a couple. But eventually I just gave into it and said, right, okay, let's go and do it again. And then I went and did another one. I went back to Sheffield for somebody else, a new promoter, and it went dead well. And I was like, yeah, all right, I've got my groove back now. And then obviously apparently did really well at the theatre. So yeah, I'm pretty much back at it now. Yeah, it really is amazing because obviously comedy is different to so many different things because you're writing. You write the material. It's your thoughts. It's the way you see the world. You're talking about yourself and your life, or how you sort of position yourself in the world. And because it's such a solo art form that it's very hard not to take it to heart when things go badly, because
it's so personal because you spent the time thinking, writing, refining, going out there and doing it, and then you're not exactly looking for people to throw flowers upon you, going, "Oh my god, that's the best thing I've ever heard." But at the same time, because it is such a personal thing and it's a huge solo journey, when it goes bad, you really feel it. But on the flip side, when it goes really, really well, you feel incredible. And I suppose that's why there's this term called the joke coke, where you literally feel like you're high because that just went so well. You connected with everybody, the entire room was laughing, and you walk off stage thinking, I am just king shit. That was the most amazing experience I've ever had.
Yeah, that first one, I pretty much came off stage like walking like Conor McGregor, just like arms swinging. Like, yeah, I am King Dick. Look at me. I can do this. And then obviously, like, you get the opposite. It did affect me, that one as well, because obviously I did that when I threw a Wednesday night, and then obviously rode the high through to like Friday afternoon, Friday evening, and then just sort of went splat. Like it switches off in like an instant, doesn't it? It don't, like, the high from a performance doesn't wear off; it just goes.
It is actually very interesting how that happens. I've experienced exactly the same thing, and as you say, it suddenly just disappears. Like, you could be riding the wave for a day or two, or sometimes even a week, depending on the circumstances. But when it goes, and I suppose this is why a lot of performers say you just got to get out there and just keep gigging. You just got to keep gigging, because it's not that you're chasing the high, but you definitely, I think the come down is such a hard come down. It can be hard to deal with.
Yeah, that one, especially that first one, because I weren't used to it either, so I didn't really know how to handle it. So I just sort of gone from this massive, like 48-hour plus buzz to just complete crash, and all of a sudden I'm feeling down and like questioning my own mental health and stuff, and I'd not long since sort of come out of a big battle with that at that point, so it kind of felt like I was slipping back into it. But again, because of the first one I'd done with a bunch of people who were full timers and stuff. One of them did a fringe show last year, I think, and so and they said, like, if you need anything, just message. So I actually popped a message like, how do I deal with this feeling, guys? Like, what do I need to do? Because at the minute I'm sort of crashing out, and they were like, there's not a lot you can do, just got to sort of ride it out, like, it does pass. Just try and sort of occupy yourself. So I got back to the notes and did a few things that I like to do sort of personally to sort of get out of that, ready for the next one.
Yeah, I guess the thing to really sort of take away from that is that every single comedian or every performer has gone through a similar experience where they've all gone and had bad gigs. They've all had that low feeling where they don't feel good enough, or that was a shit night, why don't I even bother? And that stretches across to other things like, music and everything. Like, everybody has a shit time. And I think we often lose sight of that, because if it goes bad for us and you saw that no one else on the night had a bad gig, you do tend to personalize it, and you don't go, well, this is just a part of the growth of being a performer. You basically just go, well, I'm the one who's shit.
Yeah. You sort of dump it all on yourself and just go, yeah, it's all me. I wrote it, I performed it, and I've obviously done it badly, and nobody likes it, so why should I do it again? The thing that doesn't help as well is that workshops and surrounding areas are pretty comedy starved. So there's not much happening gig-wise. It's you've kind of got to go to Nottingham, Sheffield, Leeds, Huddersfield sort of way, just to get 5 minutes. It really don't help that you can't. There's not just something you can just hop on to sort of get your bug back.
Yeah, you really have to be dedicated to just put the time in, don't you? Because as you say, if it's not around the corner in your local area and you have to travel around, you either do it because you want to or you don't do it.
Yeah, I'm always kind of jealous of people that I meet on road that are from places like Manchester and Liverpool that have got your Frogger buckets and your hot waters and 20 other promoters all trying to run gigs and stuff and all doing open mics and development gigs. And I just think, why can't we have that here? Like, why can't somebody start doing that around here and just make life a bit easier? But I suppose chasing a dream is not supposed to be easy, is it?
Well, no, I suppose if it was easy, then everybody would be doing it and everyone would be achieving everything, and we'd all be absolute millionaires, wouldn't we?
Yeah, comedy's it's a busy market as it is.
Oh, absolutely. I think since the advent of, YouTube all those years ago, and then reality TV on top of that, it's opened the floodgates for people to want to probably be famous in many different ways, and comedy is just one of them. But you got singers, songwriters, musicians, bands, actors, public speakers, artists, photographers. So many people these days are using social media as a platform to find and build an audience. And the competition I think has always been stiff, but because everything is online now and people have got such short attention spans, the competition is probably stiffer and more competitive because you're not just fighting for, hey, watch my content. You're fighting for, and please watch all of it, or just don't watch the first 3 seconds, then fuck off onto something else. Can you at least spend, like, this joke goes for 60 seconds. Can you at least watch the whole thing before you flick to the next video? I think competition from that is more stiff. Whereas when you get to the level of, say, Lee Evans or Billy Connolly or whoever, because you're so well built up and established, the respect is there. They will come to you. They'll watch you. They hang on every single word you say. But when no one knows who you are, knows what your style is, it's basically just like looking at produce in the supermarket going, oh, that one looks bad. I'll get the one next to it. Yeah,
absolutely. It's trying the pressure to stand out and put something out that's going to make people go, oh, this is good, or I haven't seen it like this before. But then you sort of risk going into, like, privately, my sense of humour can be quite dark and dry, whereas I don't carry that onto stage because of the way that things are today. And obviously, you can just get witch hunted online for saying one thing that's even slightly the wrong way intended. So I don't carry that onto stage with me. But then, like I say, you run that risk by trying to do something edgy and trying to get people to notice and pay attention.
Do you think it's actually quite unfair that society and comedy has gone down that particular way, where these days we know free country, free speech and all that type of stuff, and yet people will say, oh no, you're not allowed to joke about this? Do you think that's slightly unfair, that you have to not be who you are and not do the style that you want just to fit in with the crowd?
To be honest, I absolutely do, yeah. I think it's a shame that we've sort of become a nation or a whole population of people that can't just go, I don't like that, that's not for me, I'm not going to watch it. If you see something you don't like, people don't just scroll past it anymore. They have to share it and sort of slam it and say, this is disgusting, this guy shouldn't be on a stage. And it's like, have you ever heard of a guy called Freddie Quinn?
Oh, yeah.
I was listening to him and he said, like, he'd done a joke and somebody took offence to it because it was something about disabled people, and this bloke has got a disabled daughter, and he got up in the middle of the show and started effing and blinding at Freddie, but he was the only person. So, and it's like Freddie said, well, it's a night that's got sort of 6 comics on, so just go to the bar. If you don't like it, just go in the other room and sit at the bar till I finish, and then come back.
Yeah, wait till the next person.
It's like we can't do that anymore. We have to, like I say, we have to slam and we have to get other people on board. And again, like I said, it becomes a witch hunt. Everybody joining in and saying, no, you can't say that. But that's kind of not how free speech works.
Exactly. And the thing is, I mean, like, dark humor has always been there because it gets us through the dark times, whether that's, depression or grief or, mental health issues or whatever it might be. It's there for a reason. And I mean, look, a friend of mine and myself, we have this sick sense of humor, and one of our little hobbies is to find all the Instagram reels where they use the German soldier song. And it could be anything. It could be to a sign or a cat, that's got a small little thing under its nose or thereabouts. And we like to just send ourselves these silly videos. Now, World War II is not funny. The Holocaust isn't funny. The atrocity that happened is funny. But the way that people handle tough situations and grief and times of tragedy is to laugh about it. I mean, that's why a lot of people were telling jokes through the COVID lockdowns and so forth, because if you're not laughing, even if it's dark, the opposite, like, if you go down the rabbit hole, you just become far too more depressed. And I think that behind closed doors, people love the dark shit. They love the racist stuff, the sexist stuff, the misogynistic stuff, all the things you can't say out your front door. We all mostly secretly love that. But for some reason, on the internet or outdoors, people put on their social justice warrior cap and go, you can't say that because my wife's best friend who's not here would get offended by it.
Yeah, or I'm offended on her behalf.
Yeah, that's right.
that's the worst one. Is people getting offended by something that they're not. Start getting offended on somebody else's behalf. I mean, that one that I did, that I died at before Christmas. I'd done a new routine that I'd written about vegans, and someone saying to me, "Could you kill that animal yourself before you eat it?" And me saying, "Yeah, I'd just be stroking his little head and going, it's all right, it's all right." And then what nobody had told me is that the pub that we were doing this gig in is an all vegan pub. It's like the whole place, the food's vegan, the drinks are vegan, the staff are vegan.
The irony is just so fucking good. See, looking back at it, you can laugh at this, but at the time you're like, okay, never coming back here ever again.
Yeah.
There's probably a photograph of you in the front door saying, "Do not serve this man." Escort him out the second he walks in, the animal killing lover.
Or saying like, if they started putting the animal's name on the packet, would you still eat it? Like, yeah, go and find one that says Jake.
Yeah, it is crazy. I mean, I remember doing a gig years ago where I was telling, actually, the comedian before me, she went up on stage and she was telling jokes about relationships and her experience dating guys. And everyone was laughing because, of course, you know, you can relate. Women can relate to what it's like to date a guy, and guys can relate like, oh, yeah, we do that kind of shit, yeah. And then I get up on stage and amongst all of my routine, I told a few jokes about my girlfriend, and they were tried and tested jokes. And this lady got up, and she probably would have been in her late 40s, early 50s. She got up and she looked at me and she said, "You're rude and you're disgusting and you're sexist toward women and you're rude." And she got her partner's hand and dragged him up, and he looked at me and he went, "Yeah." And then and she walked out and she said, "And you're rude." I said, okay, bye, love. And I just kept going on. And, you know, during the break, I had all these women come up to me saying, we don't know what the fuck her problem was because we're all women and we found it hilarious because, yeah, that's what we do. Like, we laugh because we recognize our own patterns in the story of your girlfriend. And I think these days people have become so sensitive to everything. Food or relationships or gender or whatever these days. It is crazy. And the biggest tragedy is comedy seems to be the thing that's suffering the most. You very rarely hear about, you know, a song, oh, this song is disgusting because it's got transphobic or it's got vegan or it's got, you know, racist slurs or whatever. I mean, people still love listening to Eminem, but they don't keep backlashing him, whereas you go on stage and tell a joke because this is how you see the world and this is an experience that I've had. People go, as you say, how dare you say that? And I'm offended on behalf of the demographic that aren't here to be offended. It is crazy.
It is. I don't want to say. I think the best thing that we can do, sort of, as comics or as people, is to sort of follow Freddie's example of, because the guy obviously then sort of called upon cancel culture to get rid of Freddie Quinn, and Freddie just sort of went, "Well, I'm still going to gig and I'm still going to do DMT, his podcast, and I'm still going to tour. I'm still going to do this. So, you know, cancel away, but people are still going to buy tickets to come and see me, regardless of what you think."
Yeah.
And the guy left in a review that said something along the lines of, "No comedy club with any decency will ever book this man." And Freddie put it as a quote on his tour poster.
I love that.
And I think that's the way. I think personally, I think we've got to sort of take comedy back. Just say, right, well, we are going to say these things, and if you don't like it, then you need to be the one who leaves. Like, you just need to get up and leave quietly. You know, if it's a multi-act show, just go to the bar and get a drink and wait for the compere to come back on. Or if it's a one-man show, you know, you can stomp out and email and demand a refund.
Yeah, and the thing is, what I think a lot of people don't realize about comedy and comedians, it's all in the delivery. Half the time what you're talking about, it's not what you actually believe. Like, you're trying to find the joke in something, and it will start from a truth of yours, whether it be a life experience or the way you look at the world. But to make a joke about it, you'll embellish upon it, you'll expand upon it, you know, you'll exaggerate it. So you're not standing there being yourself completely. You are exaggerating to a certain point. And if you deliver something with irony and fun and a clearly joking way of delivering it, people should have the sensibility to say, well, you can tell that's a joke because it sounds like a joke. Look at the playful delivery and so forth. And we're all here to laugh. I think that people have become, not everyone obviously, but there's a lot of people who can't tell the difference between irony and someone who's actually being an asshole.
Yeah, and that is that. I mean, you're obviously a very intelligent man. Because a lot of this, it's perfectly true. You've got to understand. You're at a comedy show. Comedy is people joking. It's a constant battle of I'm saying this. This is not what I really think, and I'm gonna. A lot of the time, I see a lot of good comics do is they go off on something, and then they'll go like that is what they think, and then right at the end, that's the punchline. Is that then they'll just flip it and that's not actually what I think. I don't think women belong in a kitchen or. I'm not going to say anything else. I might get myself in trouble.
You won't get in trouble. Trust me. I mean, somebody somewhere might get offended, but fuck them. They can listen to a different podcast.
Exactly. Go and listen to Jordan Peterson or something.
Yeah, exactly. If you don't want to laugh, go off and listen to Rishi Sunak's greatest hits or something like that.
Oh God, I could think of things I'd rather do than that.
So leaving cancer culture aside, because I mean that could be like literally a 3-hour topic straight away. I mean, obviously we're on the same page there. You're obviously very passionate about comedy, but what do you do when you're off stage? How do you sort of live your life away from comedy?
At minute, I'm struggling to gig at minute because I'm on a pretty hectic schedule. So I had a bad quality job last year that was 9.5 hours a day. I was a van driver, so I delivered to customers and then pick up stuff from other branches of the company, but they'd send me all over the country. And I worked there from April to December, and I think I had 4 breaks in that whole period.
Oh, wow.
They'd just send me places, and I'm driving to hundreds of miles and just not getting a lot of days I didn't have time to stop and get like some chicken nuggets from McDonald's or anything like that. And then I'd obviously met and moved in with Anna, my wife, and we frequent the pub that we're currently, we both work in temporarily quite a lot. And somebody had said like, well, you're a chef, aren't you? And I said, well, I'm qualified as a chef. I'm not a chef at the minute. We're looking for someone. And I said, well, I can do it, but I can't do weekends because of my little one, and I can't do this. They were like, yeah, that's fine, we'll work around that. So I took that on to get out of that situation sort of thing. And then got myself in, because my earnings had gone down from doing that. I then got on a funded college course to train out to be a plasterer.
Jack of all trades. So basically you can plaster up a kitchen, then make your own meal. This is fantastic.
Yeah. So I'm doing that, and the aim is to finish this course in, I think I've got about 6 weeks left, and then go self-employed. So generally at the minute, I mean, I just signed up to Ultra as well. I don't know if you've ever heard of Ultra Comedy. It's a charity thing that you get like they do a variation of different things. There's Ultra Comedy, there's Ultra Boxing, and there's Ultra Mixed Martial Arts. So you do you get 8 weeks of training, and then they put on like a big event and you raise money for charity that way. So you sell tickets, you just set up a Just Give In and raise money through that. Nice. But it's all for charity. So I'd sort of got into comedy off my own back and I'll write my own material, I'll just do it my way. And then there was a guy that I got chatting to on my first ever gig that was wanting to get into it. So I kept trying to, we stayed in touch, we're still friends, and I kept trying to sort of encourage him and give him a little push. And he sort of dallied, and then he went and did Ultra, and now he's like streets ahead of me in terms of where he's at. He won a gong show over a week. He seems to be gigging like every other night. I mean, he's got a lot more time than me. His life's a lot more settled than mine. So my general schedule at the minute, starting from this week, is Monday I worked till 5, and then I wrote my Ultra Comedy training from 7:30 till 9:30. Tuesday I was back at work from 5. I think I knocked off about 10 o'clock. Wednesday I were at college. Thursday I were at college, and then back to work at 5. And I think we finished last night about 10 o'clock again.
It's a busy schedule.
Yeah, I think it was about 11:45 that time. I actually came out at the pub though, because a couple of us stayed behind for a drink.
Yeah.
And then generally I work Friday morning as well, so I close kitchen on a Thursday and I open it on Friday and work up till like midday, and then it's finished work at midday, home, quick shower, get changed, school run. And then that's it for the weekend. You know, little one comes on a Friday afternoon from school, he goes back on Sunday afternoon, and then straight back to it again.
It really sounds like, you know, you really have to make the time for comedy, like make the time to write, make the time to rehearse, make the time to go out there and actually find the gigs. And then of course there's the travel time, you know, to and fro as well. And as you say, like as life becomes more complicated, where you've got more things to do through relationships, family and work and everything else, I think it really comes down to if you love doing it, you'll find the time somehow, won't you?
Yeah, I'm quite lucky in this one because my kitchen manager's a really good manager, and if you've got something like that going on, he'll try and schedule around you. So if you say to him like, "Look, I've got a chance to do a gig on Thursday night," he'll be like, "Yeah, that's fine. You know, take it off as long as within reason, obviously, if you can." Without leaving us short-handed, especially on a Thursday night, because Thursday night's one of our busiest days. So he will try his best to sort of fit around. So like when I said I wanted to go and do this ultra, I can't do Monday evenings anymore, which were one of my regular shifts for Monday close. And he was like, "Yeah, that's fine." He took me off for Tuesday closes because I was working too late and then getting up to college the next day. So that was a compromise. But can I do Tuesday close to not work Monday afternoon? So I was like, "Yeah, that's fine. Like it's only for 8 weeks," sort of thing. So I am quite lucky in that respect. But then, like I said again, it's finding somewhere that I can actually get to that's. And because I ain't got any clips that I'd say are any good, it's sending them off, and then people don't like them, and it's like, well, I'm new, you know, give me a chance.
Yeah, let me practice. It is interesting because when it comes to sending clips into people, and I've done the exact same thing where they'll go, "Oh, look, you know, send us a reel or send us some clips." The unfortunate thing there is, rather than looking at you going, "Oh yeah, that person can handle a crowd, they're getting laughs," rather than looking at you as a performer, I'm fairly sure that most of these people are going, "Well, I don't find that funny," or "I don't particularly like that subject." And rather than saying, "Oh yeah, look, you're an experienced comedian on stage, experience with an audience, we'll let you have a gig here," I think a lot of people say, "Well, I don't find you funny," or "I don't like that material, therefore I'm not going to even bother with you." And I think that that's kind of unfair.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, when you're new, you're just looking for a chance. It's practicing, and every time you go on an open mic, you're practicing. And I think I've turned over material at an alarming rate because I've done a routine now, so I don't like that anymore. It's finding your thing, and it's finding what you want, your style, what stories you want to tell, and how you want to get them across. And like I say, I've done them, and I did one about being in Benidorm when I was like 20, 21, and all stupid stuff that I did. And it sold, to be fair, but I didn't like it, so that got scrapped. And that's like that routine's now my break glass in emergency. I'm dying on my arse, and I've run out of material, and I've still got 10 minutes to go.
Yeah, pull something out of the well and just tell that one instead.
Yeah.
I
mean, I could record it and put it out. I know they call that burning material. I don't think it really counts as burning it for me because not enough people are going to see it for me to not do it on stage anymore.
Well, that's the other. I mean, look, one of the favorite comedians of mine has always been Jimmy Carr, and I remember seeing him on YouTube well before I ever went to one of his shows. And it didn't stop me from wanting to see him live. And even when I did see him live the very first time, there was about, I don't know, a quarter of the show made up of jokes that I had seen on YouTube before, where he'd gone off to Montreal or he'd done a small appearance on a TV show like the Royal Variety or whatever it might be. But to me, it's like I get to see Jimmy Carr live telling the jokes I've loved watching on YouTube. And I think that sometimes as a comedian, you do think to yourself, well, I've said that, it's on camera, it's on the internet, anybody can see it now, so I can't say it again. Whereas the truth is, yeah, it's on the internet, but it hasn't been watched by 8 billion people. It's been watched by, 100 or 300 people. And those 300 people don't go to the same gigs. They're not in the same locations. They're not in the same cities. They're not in the same countries. And I think sometimes we do get a little bit precious of releasing material because it's still out there. I mean, I've got some clips out there which are from this year, some from previous years. And it didn't stop me from bringing out some of those old jokes on stage this year because I recognize that, well, there are people in this audience that weren't there 3 years ago when I told these particular jokes, and they're still relevant today. And if it's material that you know works, hey, use it.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say I think I've got one clip out at a minute, and that was down to my wife, not me.
Mm.
And like I say, I can still use. I do still use that joke on stage, and someone said to me, "You shouldn't really be doing that one because you've put it out." Like, yeah, but the only people that have seen it are like my mum and some of my cousins. Like, even my dad's not seen it. My dad's not on social media, so even my dad don't know. My dad's not seen that one.
Mm.
Obviously, when you get to a different level, it's a bit more complicated.
Well, it's weird. I mean, the next time a comedian says, "Oh, look, you really shouldn't be telling that joke on stage because you've already got that online on video format," then just go, "Oh, okay. So does that mean that musicians should never go on stage and perform the songs that they release on their albums?"
Yeah,
because you can go off
that's a good one.
You can go off and see Green Day playing American Idiot, and but I heard it on Spotify this morning. It's like, who cares? I still get to see it live, and that's the experience. And if you love it, if you love a joke or you love a certain song or a certain performance, you will see it again and again. It's like movies. How many times have you gone back to watch a movie more than once, at the cinema or watch it on Netflix because you just love the movie, even though you know what happens next?
Yeah, rewatching stuff. Yeah, I don't think I'd mind too much. I think if I were watching somebody on tour and they were doing old jokes, I think I'd be a bit sort of not disappointed, but wanting to see something new because it's a tour show. I think if I went to see like Adam Rowe do half an hour at Hot Water and he did one of his ones off for one of his specials that I've already said, I don't think I'd be that upset about it because they're all good jokes.
Mm.
In fact, there's one of his. Have you heard of Adam at all? Adam Rowe?
No.
If you go on YouTube and search Adam Rowe Victoria's Secrets, just going back to what we were saying earlier about the current culture, he does a routine about Victoria's Secrets and not having a fat model. He talks about transgender models and fat models. And he's had to if you search him defending it, he has to defend that routine so much because people are saying it's transphobic, and he says, no, it's not. If you go back and listen to it again, it's actually fat phobic. He says, but nobody notices that because I've said the word transgender. Everyone instantly jumps on this bandwagon and goes, oh, no, you can't say that. No. And he says, I'm not being transphobic at all. I'm being fat phobic.
I've told transgender jokes on stage before, and I get around it through two different ways. Number one, I wear makeup on stage. I've got a sort of very punk rock look. So I basically sort of just make fun of how I look and then relate it to what I'm talking about. But then the other thing is, and I bring this into my comedy as well, I've actually got a trans member of my family. And whilst I don't think for a second that gives me the right to say whatever I want, because I've lived it and I've experienced it on a daily basis for the past 25 years in my family, I've got a better understanding of it. And it's none of this, foo-foo, bloody, you must respect me, I demand respect bullshit that the world's latched onto in the past 18 months or 2 years. I understand where her transition came from and the entire story behind that. And one of my favorite things to say when I tell my transgender jokes is it's important that the trans community learns to laugh at itself, because let's face it, we do. And it always goes down really well. But the thing is, if anyone gets offended by it, I just bring it back to the fact of, well, hey, look at how I look, and I've got a trans member in my family. And by the way, they're not offended by these jokes. So once again, why should you be? And there are certain key phrases and key words that trigger people these days. And unfortunately, people just need to fucking deal with it.
Yeah, I mean, I always growing up, I had similar to yourself, I had an uncle that was gay. Well, he still is, to be fair. But I sort of understood that better than a lot of like my friends and stuff to do, maybe not experienced it. And he's saying, yeah, we call him all sorts of stuff. We rip on him, but it's one of the things that if it's you and a member of your family, then you can do it. But if somebody, like we've always said, like if we went into a pub and somebody called him the F slur, that person would be dealt with in a different way to what it is when we say it. If that makes sense.
Well, once again, it comes down to the delivery. Like if somebody is joking around and it's like, oh, you big fag, you can kind of go, oh yeah, ha ha, But if it's said in a very derogatory way where it's clearly you're taking a stab at somebody, then it's a totally different story. But I suppose the other thing there is if it's a stranger just saying it, you're like, well, that's a very funny joke to make. Why are you doing that? So there's comedy timing, not just for comedians on stage, but for people who are just telling jokes in general.
Yeah, you've got to get it right.
Absolutely. So tell me, buddy, what are the grand plans moving forward for the rest of 2024 and further into the future? Where do you see yourself going with comedy?
At the minute, for the rest of 2024, it's just keep chipping away at these open mics. Obviously, get this course finished at college and get sort of business set up so that I can work around myself and nobody else. It'll probably make that a lot easier and be able to get around a bit more and have a bit more sort of wiggle room with schedules. So that's the plan for this year. I've got some podcast equipment at home that I've got for Christmas that I've not used yet because we can't live for us figure out how to make it work. So we're going to try and get that. I know it's just another couples podcast. You know, there's not many of them knocking about these days. So we're going to try and launch that this year. If we can, like I say, if we can figure out how to get it to actually record.
I think it's one of those things, isn't it? I mean, if you want to put yourself out there, there's so many different platforms these days. I mean, look at all the comedians, like Joe Rogan, of course, he's got the biggest and most popular podcast in the world, and he's a comedian, of course, has been for decades. I think that these days, comedy isn't just about writing jokes and telling them on stage. It's about finding your audience. And with the podcast, for example, it's a good way of connecting with somebody, and it doesn't need to obviously be an overly funny one. It's just a matter of finding the audience that connects with you, resonates with your message, your view on the world. And then when you go, hey, and by the way, I'm doing a comedy show and here's my tour, people go, oh, fantastic, I'll come and see you.
Yeah, I mean, we've got plenty of, me and my partner, we have some like really out there conversations and we will just talk about absolutely anything. So that is, yeah, it should be recording it should be the easy part, really. It's getting it to take off that's the we've got a lot of niche as well because we're an age gap. So she's 45, I'm 31. So that'll give us a little, like we sort of give each other some grief for stuff, obviously different stuff like. If she's not heard, so I'm like, oh yeah, you've been too old for that. Like you were too old for Pokemon, or she'll mention a film, and I'm like, no, that's way before I was born.
But that's kind of it's interesting how you can have that demographic, and it makes it entertaining because you can rip off each other, and people will resonate with either one of those views. I think it's a really cool idea.
Yeah, as I say, hopefully I can get this stuff to actually work because we tried it, and it just don't record, or the sound effects don't work.
Absolutely.
But yeah, that's this year, and then in comedy, I don't know, the sky's the limit.
Well, that's right, isn't it? I mean, do you have your sort of sights set on being the next Lee Evans?
Hopefully. Obviously an arena tour would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's a long, 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 long way off. But yeah, I'd sort of like to get to that sort of level. Aiming for, obviously at the minute it's aiming for regular paid work and regular proper comedy club work like Hot Water, Frog, Glee, that sort of thing. And then obviously you take a step from there, don't you? And you go and do an hour at Edinburgh. If that works, you go and take it round country. So yeah, that's the long-term goal, is to get to that sort of area.
Sounds good. Sounds like a really good goal to have. Listen, last question for you before we wrap this one up. If there's anyone out there listening to the podcast who is thinking about getting into comedy, or they've been suggested, hey, why don't you give it a go? Or they've always had the passion, but they've never been able to just get over the thoughts of, no, I can't, and it's so embarrassing. What would your advice be to anybody who wants to give stand-up a go?
Just do it. Just do it. Contact somebody. If you get past the name of somebody that runs a new act or an open mic night, contact them. Get yourself booked in and just have a go. You've got nothing to lose by it not going well or deciding that's not actually what you want to do, but you don't really know if it is until you've tried it. So,
and of course, the other thing there is just remember that the greatest comedians in the world used to bomb when they first started as well.
Yeah, there's plenty of them out there. You can't tell me that Lee Evans has never, gone out on his arse or Peter Kay, John Bishop. I mean, the stories about Peter Kay when you're on circuit are less than favourable, but you can't tell me that he didn't have an absolute stinker at Frog, or, you know, John Bishop at Hot Water might have had a couple of stinkers. Everyone's had them where they've gone out and it's just not quite worked out. If you do one and it don't go particularly well, but you want to carry on, do another one, just keep doing it until you make a decision. Like I say, you've got the big thing to remember is you're not losing anything by trying.
No, not at all. And I think that is literally one of the best piece of advice for anyone to hear. Nothing to lose by trying, and just give it a go.
Yeah, you're better off having tried it and either not liked it or decided it's not for you than never knowing, like living that constant in your back of your mind of what if I had gone and done it. And then, you know, if you watch somebody else, because you have comedians sort of breaking out pretty much constantly, there's always somebody new coming through. So you're sort of watching them then go on to, you know, tour and do specials and stuff like that, and then you keep sitting there thinking, why did I try?
Yeah.
I think it's better to have, even if you go and do one and it absolutely dies, you know, you're on your arse, you come out having hated it, you're better off having done it, but at least you did it.
Absolutely.
Even if you never ever do it again.
Yeah, you don't want to have a life of regret. You just want to try it. You don't want to be on your deathbed saying to yourself, I wish I'd given something a go.
Yeah. We've all lost 2 years nearly of his life through that pandemic that we're never going to get back, that we've had to spend locked indoors. So just go and do something for yourself. Try it. Maybe you'll have a riot. Might be the best thing you ever do.
Yeah, and I think that is the best advice to end on. Well, look, thank you so much for being a guest on the Identity Crisis podcast, and I look forward to seeing and hearing your progression in the comedy circuit.
Yes, thank you very much for having me. It's been a good first podcast. It's the first one I've ever done. So, yeah, it's been nice. Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to this episode, and remember, it's only an identity crisis if you choose to make it one. It's okay to not be okay, so speak up and talk to someone, or be the one that someone can turn to in their time of need. Don't forget to follow this podcast wherever you're listening, and if you're interested in being a guest on the show, send me an email at jnewtzcomedy@gmail.com. I'm JNewtz, and I'll see you next time.